Welcome back to Dechamp's Rants and Reviews. I'm Mark Dechamp Deschamps. Today, I'm going to be talking about the brand new trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. And very specifically, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the culture around Star Wars. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, this is not our first trailer, but it gives us our first really good idea of what we're going to expect from the movie itself. So basically, we have Mando and Grogu, who are now serving as agents of the Republic, and they seem to be hunting down enemies of the new government, of the new, galaxy order. So we see them going after Hutts. We see them going after what are being referred to as the Imperial Remnants. So this is kind of cool. We've seen a lot of like action figures already of these like Imperial Remnants. So basically, like it's like stormtroopers in shoddier armor. This movie takes place clearly, a couple decades before The Force Awakens, so we don't have the First Order yet, and what's left of the Empire is in dire straits. They're not using like the best technology. Things are discolored and breaking down a little bit, but these people are still believers in Palpatine and believers in the Empire, and they're out there, and Grogu and Mando are out there hunting them down. So it looks pretty cool. I'm excited. I really liked getting a better feel for what to expect. Full disclosure, I'm a big fan of the series. I'm a big fan of Star Wars in general, but I think that the Mandalorian is one of the best things that Disney has done since acquiring the property from George Lucas. I've been interested all along to see how they would take that show, which is very episodic, which is not something you see a lot in the streaming era. Unfortunately, in the streaming era, all these TV shows are basically just like 10-hour movies. But The Mandalorian has been a very episodic show since it began. So it was always going to be interesting to see how they were going to translate that to make a Star Wars movie, something that feels epic and large and, worthy of being on the big screen. And after watching the trailer, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm more excited than I was before. Like, this looks cool. We have Sigourney Weaver, who's playing, we know she's like an X-Wing pilot. I'm very interested. The scale seems movie Star Wars. It looks cool. But it's really the reaction that I'm interested in talking about today. And like, listen, I want to preface all of this by saying not everything is for everybody. And there are good faith arguments against what Disney has done with Star Wars. You can watch these movies and dislike them. That's totally okay. I have good friends that hate basically everything that Disney has done with Star Wars since acquiring it. But what is really driving me nuts as a Star Wars fan is that the fan base for Star Wars is just miserable all the time. And I already see it in the reactions. There aren't good faith arguments being made about what's in the trailer. It's just like, oh, I'm sick of Grogu. Like, he is the secondary lead of The Mandalorian. Like, he is a character that has become a gigantic fan favorite. Like, I can't go a December or Christmas season without seeing holiday light displays that have Grogu in them. At least one house will have Grogu dressed up as Santa. Like, this is probably the biggest Star Wars character to cross over and become like huge with casual people since like Chewbacca or R2D2. You're not going to get rid of Grogu. So immediately it's like, oh, people are grumping about Grogu. And the thing is too, like, that's actually one of the things I did really like about this trailer. Star Wars, so full disclosure, I'm a parent, and Star Wars does not have a lot of good parents. And there's not really a lot of good dads in media in general. So to have the focus of this show basically be Din Djarin learning how to become a parent and becoming, this parental figure to Grogu has been really interesting. And it's been so fun to watch his journey. And we're already seeing in this trailer how that's going to continue to evolve. We see him having to contemplate the fact that there is going to be, Grogu is going to go hundreds of more years, living beyond Din Djarin. And that's a really fascinating dynamic. Like, it's their time together is going to be a blip in Grogu's life. And as a parent, we all kind of deal with the fact that hopefully our kids far outlive us. So it is really interesting that this is the approach that Jon Favreau, the director, is going with on this. And I'm curious to see what happens. And we don't know in the timeline specifically what happens to Mandalorian and Grogu, between the time of the show and, the sequel trilogy, the Force Awakens and the Rey films. So like that is very, very fascinating to me. And the jadedness I was prepared for, but it's just so annoying. And I'm seeing this a lot too as I've talked about playing Star Wars Outlaws. I've talked about the game a little bit on this channel, but mostly on my Blue Sky account. I've been playing it on Switch 2. I started it on Xbox Game Pass and then jumped over to Switch 2, and I am just loving this game. It is like hitting every cylinder for me. Like, it is just connecting with me in a really big way, and I love it. And I don't like every Star Wars game. I'm gonna be honest with you. The EA Jedi Fallen Order games, they do nothing for me. So finding that I really like Star Wars Outlaws as much as I do is fantastic. And the other day I like put up a picture from the game on my Blue Sky account, and I just said something like, I can't believe this game flopped. And immediately some person I don't follow and doesn't follow me jumped in and was trashing it. And it just really made me think that, like, this fan base is just so miserable. And they've been like this my entire life. Before the prequels, it was people complaining about, the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. And I think the internet has really exacerbated this, because like when I was a kid growing up, like everybody just kind of loved the Star Wars trilogy. Like, it really exploded again when the special editions came to theaters, and then that became a thing that people were complaining about. And again, there are rightful complaints, Greedo shooting first and so on. But it was the special editions everybody was trashing. And then Episode 1 came out, which I love Star Wars Episode 1. I'm going to be honest. Not a lot of people love The Phantom Menace. I love The Phantom Menace. I'm a big fan of The Phantom Menace. It's actually my favorite of the Lucas prequel trilogy. I don't know that I enjoy it more than I enjoy Rogue One or Solo, a Star Wars story. But I do like it better than I like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So, I'm kind of in the minority on that. But that was another example. Like, The Phantom Menace came out. Everybody hated The Phantom Menace. And then everybody hated the prequel trilogy. And then the funny thing is, Disney started making the sequel trilogy. And now everybody talks about how great the prequels are and hates on the sequels. It's really like, it wears on me as a fan. It's just, again, everybody is entitled to their opinions, and I don't ever want to say that like you can't knock on something you don't enjoy. Like, that's what the internet was kind of created for, and it's fun sometimes. But like, it's constant. And when people track me down to tell me that the Star Wars game I'm loving doesn't excite them and they haven't played it, I'm just like, this is just so... it's hard because it wears on my enjoyment of Star Wars media. And I was really disappointed a few weeks ago. I found out that Star Wars Insider is ending, and that magazine has been going on for a very, very, very long time. I'm not a subscriber, but I do buy it like when I have a chance. Usually when I'm going on vacation, it's like really nice, like calming reading material, because it kind of, they go over Star Wars things in a way that's like it's fun analysis instead of this, constant whining about things. Like, I can pick up an issue of Star Wars Insider and there's like a history of like the made for TV Ewok movies. And like, I'll read that. Like, I haven't even seen those made for TV Ewok movies, but I'll read an article breaking down, their original air dates and, how they were kind of seen as a continuation of the Star Wars saga when it didn't seem like there was going to be any more Star Wars media. So like, I love stuff like that. And the fact that Star Wars Insider, this like wholesome, outlet for Star Wars fans, folding is just so dispiriting when you just can't. I feel like I can never talk about Star Wars and like geek out about Star Wars with like anybody. Like, I want to geek out about Star Wars the way that I did like when I was a kid, talking to my cousins or, my friends at school. And it's just the jadedness about it has just gotten so overbearing. And I know it's mostly the older fans. Like, I go, we'll take our kids to Star Wars night at like the ballparks because they all do them now, like the minor league teams. And there's tons of kids dressed up as Rey and, as newer characters, and, the passion is still there. I know it's a minority, and I know I shouldn't let it affect my enjoyment, but like, it really is such a bummer. But it makes me hope all the more that the Mandalorian and Grogu ends up being, a big success. I'm already rooting for it because I love Star Wars and I love, the Mandalorian very specifically. And, Jon Favreau is a director that I'm a big fan of. I loved the first Iron Man movie. Second one's kind of it's kind of really but and Elf is one of my favorite Christmas movies. So when it comes to like genre films, like Jon Favreau rules. Like, I've really got my fingers crossed on this one. I hope that it ends up being good, and I hope that you enjoy it too. If you're watching, I really do appreciate it. Maybe you totally disagree. Maybe you think that people aren't hard enough on Star Wars. And like I said, going into this, like, I don't want it to sound like I love every Star Wars thing that gets made. As I noted, like the EA's, Star Wars Jedi games with Cal Kestis, they just have not connected with me on any level. I've tried both of them, and just neither one of them I could get very far without bailing on it. The Star Wars cartoons that everybody loves, Clone Wars and Rebels, like, I've watched a little of them. I've enjoyed them, but they haven't hooked me the way that like The Mandalorian did. So I'm not saying that you can't have genuine critiques of the material, but when it's just constant, complaining about, this female protagonist, and I think that does have, a big part of that is, there's sexism in the Star Wars fandom. Rey can't do anything without being a Mary Sue. Kay Vess, immediately there were complaints that, she was the protagonist of Star Wars Outlaws, but everybody loves the Jedi games. With Cal Kestis, who was like some super powerful Jedi that just was, bouncing around the galaxy apparently before the original trilogy. So I don't know, I hope that this is a success. I walked out of seeing the trailer pretty happy about it. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Is there something that bothered you about it that wasn't just a general, disdain for current Star Wars? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate, people watching and their feedback. This channel has been a really great outlet for me being able to talk to people about these types of things that I'm passionate about. So if you stumbled on this, please think about subscribing. I rant about basically everything here. I talk about Star Wars. I talk about, horror movies. I'm a big horror buff. Video games. Again, Star Wars Outlaws. I love video games. I've been covering video games for years. So thank you so much for watching. Think about subscribing, and you take care.